Hi, I'm Tim Sheeser for TechSpot, and this is the Sony Xperia Z Ultra, Sony's new phablet that is designed to take on the Samsung Galaxy Note range. The device sports a 6.4-inch 1080p LCD display on the front, and inside there's a Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 chip with a 2.2 GHz quad-core CPU and an Adreno 330 GPU. There's also 2 GB of RAM and 16 GB of internal storage expandable through a micro SD card slot. Inside you can find the usual range of connectivity features, including 4G LTE and Wi-Fi 802.11 AC. Camera-wise, Sony has included their Exmor RS sensor at 8 megapixels, and as you'll note, there's no LED flash on the back of this device. Internally, there's also a 3000 mAh battery, and the entire device comes in at just 6.5mm thick. As you might expect for an Xperia smartphone, this device is running Android 4.2 out of the box, along with some light skinning done by Sony. First up, I'd just like to say a big thanks to mobbycity.com.au, who sent out the Xperia Z Ultra for me to review today. Please check them out if you're looking for an unlocked or SIM-free device, and they do ship to most countries in the world, so definitely check them out at mobbycity.com.au. So let's take a look at the Xperia Z Ultra's design, and as you'll notice, it is completely dominated by that massive 6.4-inch display on the front. In fact, if we compare it here to the Samsung Galaxy S4, you'll notice just how big this phone is in comparison to a phone which is pretty sizable itself with a 5-inch display, but it is simply no match for the massiveness of the Xperia Z Ultra. Construction-wise, this device is made out of rather premium materials, including Gorilla Glass 3 on both the front and the back of this phone. But as you'll notice here, as you can see, as I shine the light directly on this makes the phone a very massive fingerprint magnet, and I believe that you'll be probably wanting to clean this device quite a lot compared to, say, the HTC One, which is made from aluminium. Another thing to note is just how slim this device is. In fact, if you take a look, you'll see that it's 6.5mm thin, which is absolutely fantastic for a flagship device, especially one that's this big. Unfortunately though, the size does have some trade-offs. For example, they've only chosen to use a 8 megapixel camera up the top there, and as well there's only a 3000 mAh battery, which can be rather small, and I did find the battery life to be reasonably disappointing on the Z Ultra. Looking around the device, and you will find the dock connector on the left hand side, which is kind of an unusual choice. It looks odd, it looks like it could be potentially missing a volume button, but it is there if you choose to buy the dock accessory. Also hidden at the top in a port, which can be rather hard to remove, is the micro USB charging port. The reason why this is covered by a port is the entire phone is waterproof, and it does need to have the ports covered in the event that you do submerge it in water. On the bottom of the device you will find the speaker as well as a charm port. On the right hand side you'll find the power button as well as the volume rocker, and again there is another hidden port here that we have to hide the micro SD card slot as well as the SIM card slot. So again, you do need to keep this shut if you want to go underwater. There's also the 3.5mm headphone jack, which is conveniently uncovered, meaning you can just easily plug your headphones in and out without any trouble. On the top there is also a secondary microphone. On the back of this device you'll find the Xperia branding, also Sony branding, and a handy NFC logo that tells you exactly where you need to tap another device if you want to share through NFC. Of course as well there is that camera there, missing the LED flash. On the front of the device we also have some more Sony branding. There is the earphone and as well as a secondary microphone, as well as some sensors and a front-facing camera. There's also a notification light on this side, which flashes in the event that you do receive messages, emails, and so forth. Considering the size of this device, it actually only weighs 212 grams, and it doesn't even feel that heavy when you're holding it in your hand, which is a major advantage for this type of phone. Unfortunately, as you'll notice here, it is rather massive, and that makes it extremely cumbersome in everyday life. I mean, you can just see, compared to the size of my hand, just how enormous this device really is. The size presents a real issue for when you have the Z Ultra in your pocket, because you simply will not be able to move as well as if you had a smaller device like the Galaxy S4. The massiveness is just really impractical for everyday life, and I just can't see the advantages to having a phone this sized over, say, something like the Galaxy Note, which is a much more reasonable size. As you notice, when I put this device up to my head, it looks ridiculous, and to be honest, I probably would have preferred to see it maybe with a 6-inch display and not with such a massive bezel on the top and also the bottom of the display. You can see here that it is quite big, and there's no capacitive buttons here. They are in fact included in the software. So it's a strange choice by Sony on that front. Moving on to the display, and despite the obvious size disadvantages to having a 6.4-inch 1080p display, it looks absolutely fantastic in nearly all circumstances, making this device really awesome to use for things such as gaming as well as multimedia. Looking at some more sample shots, you will notice just how crisp and awesome this display looks, especially when you zoom in. You can really notice that 1080p display, and even though it's only 344 pixels per inch, it's still really crisp to look at both text and images. It's also enhanced by something called the Mobile Bravia Engine 2, which you can enable or disable in the settings. And what this does is actually increases the quality of the image that you look at when you're looking at both pictures and videos. And I find that it's almost always better to keep this feature on because it really improves the quality of things in the stock Sony apps that they've included. Also, just looking at a quick video that they've included on here, it does look really awesome, the display, and it is powerful enough to play 4K video thanks to that Qualcomm Snapdragon processor in there. It's simply an astonishing media device, and I think if you can get past the fact that it's 6.4 inches big, you'll have no trouble using this absolutely wonderful Sony display. When looking at text also on the display, you'll notice that it is an extremely high quality and very crisp to read, making it really nice even if you want to use this device as sort of a small ebook reader or something along those lines. Compared to some devices on the market that have a pixel per inch density of over 400, such as the HTC One and the Galaxy S4, this display isn't as crisp, it doesn't look as paper-like as those displays, but again, you will definitely not be disappointed with what you're getting with this 6.4 inch display. It's still wonderfully crisp, and you can't ascertain individual pixels because of that density that's still over 300. So again, no complaints as far as the display goes. One of the interesting features that the Xperia Z Ultra has is the ability to accept a wide variety of inputs as a stylus, including a pencil, which I just have right here. If your pencil is reasonably blunt, it actually makes a really nice stylus. The handy thing is you might just have a pencil lying around, such as you can have one in your suit pocket. You can easily pull it out and you can start annotating, you can draw cubes, you can circle things really easily, even with just your standard graphite pencil. Another advantage to this is that you don't actually have to use a pencil. You can use any capacitive stylus as well as things that are just metal. For example, I have a screwdriver here, and I can easily just use that as a stylus, absolutely no problems. It's essentially the same input as if I use my finger. It all works extremely smoothly and very nicely. I tried quite a range of styluses with the Xperia Z Ultra, but at the end I just found that a pencil is simply the best. It's very comfortable. It's more comfortable than the small stylus that's included with the Galaxy Note. Then again, it's not included. There's no slot, as I said, in the phone to simply slip it away, but it's very cheap, it's very comfortable, and it works well, and that's essentially all you want with a stylus. One of the significant downsides to using the Xperia Z Ultra is its software. It's unfortunately just not optimized well enough for the massive 6.4 inch display, and I'll show you some examples right now. As you can see here on the actual home screen, Sony has included a 6x6 grid compared to the standard 4x4 grid that you can find on other Android devices. But this isn't really enough, because when you dive deeper into some of the included applications, it simply just doesn't use the space that you have as well as you would hope. First, I'll run through some of the apps that do actually use the screen space quite well, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. If you go into the album, it's basically just a large list of all the photos that you've taken, and that's basically exactly what you want from an app that has such a large display. And also the audio player is reasonably well. If you head into My Music, you'll notice at the top that there is the range of different categories that you can sort your songs by, such as you can choose songs or albums or anything. and then you can simply scroll up using the bottom section to find the songs you want to play. It's very useful, and it does make good use of the full range of display. Again, so does the browser. The browser is simply just going to show you a web page, and you do want it to use all of the display at once. You don't want anything taken up by other elements. So in that respect, by Sony choosing to use Chrome, which is bundled with this, it's the perfect choice for the Z Ultra. Unfortunately, this is where the optimizations for this device do end. If we go into things such as the Contacts app, you notice immediately here that it is just one giant list of contacts. I really would have liked to see here things such as on this white space down the right hand side, perhaps including quick options to call my contacts or message my contacts, but that simply isn't here in the app, so it's just wasting a lot of space. Again, we'll see this in the calendar application. You notice here that you do actually have an agenda slot at the bottom here, which does indicate when you've got things on, but you have to tap on each of the individual days to get this up. When you've got such a massive display up the top, it really should be showing you maybe a small portion of your agenda, or even showing you the times that you've got used up. But it's not doing this, it's just showing you small red dots, and I don't really understand why they haven't purposed the software to use the display better. For example, you go into the week mode and it's just a giant list. There could be far better uses for this, such as highlighting perhaps the weather on particular days or times that you have free. I'm not sure, but I just don't feel like the software on this device has been particularly optimized for the large screen real estate that you have. Another example of this is the strange Notes application. As I showed you before, you can use any stylus on this display, so you'd be thinking immediately that this is designed as a note-taking device. But the software that you get for taking notes is simply not up to scratch. For example, here we have the Notes application. In this, what you can do is take text notes, which is of course good. You need to be able to take text notes. And you have some basic formatting options, such as you can choose font size, you can choose colors, you can even include audio notes within this app. But there's no option to annotate from within this app. The only thing you can do is input text and audio. To annotate things, you actually have to switch over to the Sketch application, which I showed you before. From this app, you can annotate, you can draw diagrams, you can do anything you want, but you can't input text. Of course, you can change your things. Here you can implement these cool little stickers or whatever. You can take photos. These are all good features to have in an app like this, but really the Notes and the Sketch app should be combined into one really solid offering for a device that is built for note-taking. Unlike Sony, I can't really expect third-party developers to optimize their applications for the 6.4-inch display. It's very unusual to have a phone this large, so either we're getting large smartphone applications, such as this app for Australian Rules Football. It basically just makes the font really big. Alternatively, we get small tablet apps such as Twitter that I showed you before, and also Feedly, a great application for feeds. Essentially, this is what you want. Either one is pretty much okay. But again, I would really have liked to see Sony optimize their applications to make this software on this phone really solid, but we just haven't seen that here. Moving on to the speed and performance of this device, and I have to say that the Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 system on a chip inside this device is absolutely astonishingly fast. The 2.2 GHz quad-core Crate 400 CPU, the Adreno 330 GPU, and 2 GB of RAM make this an absolute dream to use. There's no lag, and switching between applications is monstrously fast. Seems though if I just go into Album, it loads instantly. Switch back to Feedly, it loads instantly. Anything that I've ever opened before opens within a flash, and even things that I haven't opened before, such as maps here, load really very quickly. And panning around and everything is smooth, everything in the browser is smooth. This device is simply a dream in terms of performance. The best way to show off the graphical prowess of this device is to actually run Graphics Bench 2.7 with the T-Rex HD test. Generally speaking, we only see 15 or so frames per second on the Adreno 320 used in the Snapdragon 600, but this is almost, I would consider, playable if a game decided to use OpenGL3 graphics, really nice textures, high quality textures, rendering at 1080p with shadows and everything. This is almost playable, I have to say, and the first time that I've ever seen this benchmark run really smoothly on a device. What this translates to is that essentially every game that you can find on Android is as fast as it can be, running 60 frames per second smoothly. I've never seen a game that's as graphically powerful as this on Android, so even in the future, the Snapdragon 800 is setting itself up for some really awesome games on Android. What I'm actually showing off here on the Xperia Z Ultra is a 4K Ultra HD video being played back smoothly by this Snapdragon 800 chipset. This is actually a first for smartphones that I've used. Every other phone simply can't decode this video with any sort of smoothness or stability, which shows off how future-proof this device really is for showing off 4K videos. Of course, 4K isn't the standard right now. You'll probably still be seeing 1080p videos, but again, this phone is very fast and very capable at essentially everything that I've thrown at it. There are two other things that I just wanted to mention really quickly about the Xperia Z Ultra. One of them is the 8 megapixel rear camera. It uses the Exmor RS sensor, but I didn't find it to be particularly amazing, and not as amazing as the 13 megapixel version that I found on the Xperia Z. That said, you can get some good shots out of it. I recommend that you check out the sample shots. You can find links to that in the description below or further along in this review. Another thing that should be mentioned is the phone's battery life. I found the 3000 mAh battery to be not as amazing as I was expecting. As you can see here, you do have a range of settings that can improve the battery life, such as stamina mode and also low battery mode, but generally I found that I was left with perhaps 20% or even lower at the end of the day, and it just doesn't hold up as well as the Galaxy Note or other flagship devices that I've used recently. Now it comes down to the final verdict of whether the Xperia Z Ultra is the note-taking and multimedia smartphone that you are after. Is it a genuine contender up against Samsung's Galaxy Note? At the end of the day, I just feel a little bit disappointed compared to what I've seen in the Galaxy Note, which is a very quality device. This phone is just too big and too cumbersome to be useful in everyday life. The 6.4-inch display is wonderful, but it just makes the phone too large and inconvenient to use. It's especially hard to use one-handed, and even though there is that stylus support that is incredibly useful, the stylus actually isn't included with the phone, and the software just doesn't take advantage of the stylus support that is there. I was also disappointed by the battery life. The screen sucks an enormous amount of power, and it doesn't really last as long as I saw with the Galaxy Note. Again, the Snapdragon 800 processor is absolutely phenomenally fast, and the display is also very good quality compared to some other smartphones that I've seen, but that is not enough to really make the Xperia Z Ultra a fantastic smartphone purchase. With software that just isn't as optimized as I would have liked to have seen, and also with a phone size that is just too cumbersome to be useful, unfortunately the Sony Xperia Z Ultra does not get my recommendation, and I would probably steer towards the Galaxy Note if I needed a note-taking or large-screened multimedia device. Again, big thanks to mobbycity.com.au who sent out the Xperia Z Ultra for me to review today. Do check them out if you need a smartphone that's unlocked or SIM-free. Do check out the full written review of this device that is available on TechSpot.com, and of course subscribe to this YouTube channel if you do want some more video reviews, which will be coming up in the future. I'm Tim Shisa, and this has been a TechSpot video review.